Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Kayla. I'm a co-founder of Gvrlblvnts. I am a spiritual activist, and I am always trying to get information and knowledge and collected on health and how to best be have self-awareness and mindfulness and accountability, so that we can all evolve and ascend. And I'd like to collect that information and be able to make it accessible to my community. Mostly is, I am a Black spiritual activist, so it's for the Black community. But when it's talking about finding a history that's been lost and resold back to us, that a lot of people do experience that. So all the information that I get is for anyone who really needs it. But my ultimate purpose is for the Black community to be able to find health that is not through a white lens. With Gvrlblvnts, what I add to the table is that I research and find what herbs would target the symptoms of historical trauma. And so I go and I look and see what each herb does, and I research and meditate on a lot of the things that the information that we give out. And we all, or me and my partner Nikki, we instinctually or intuitively will mostly know what goes into each blend by what we feel we need in that time, and it ends up being right. So that's pretty amazing. We have pretty much a silent partner. The one who helped us create this was Cambria. And right now, she's out there doing big things with her craft, which is being, going to go and become a director for plays and stuff like that, and writing and doing all of her amazingness. So she mostly goes and does her awesomeness out there and supports us, through a lot of emotional labor and giving us new things to think about. But mostly she's focusing on her other stately things that she's been working on for so long, and she's amazing at it. She actually got me into watching plays and going to them, and now I'm addicted to them. But she really helped us start creating this, and really find a piece of each of us within it. And so we all bring something to the table. Nikki does a lot of the putting the stuff together and posting stuff online, and really beyond like getting the information out there. And she is amazing at that. And she also does tarot readings, which she'll be posting that like on YouTube or on Instagram for the start of astrological season. So if, like, say, start of Aries season and start of Sag season, she'll do like a tarot reading for that time, and then she'll do a tarot reading for new moon and the full moon. And so that's how she goes and expands within her spirituality and be able to give as much as her capacity allows her to give. For me, I do a lot of times, before any of this, I was an astrologer. I am an astrologer. I like to look at all spiritualities, and I research them and find what works, and looking at what has neglected to work, or how we've been seeing the anti of spirituality be delivered to us. And I research a lot on that. A lot of times I do workshops and seminars, and I write those up. So I do a lot of workshopping and stuff like that. Soon I will be pretty much wanting to make pretty much my own class. So I'm gonna be working on that. And I have a business called Social Construction, which it means pretty much where my classes will base on is how to construct society to reflect us as BIPOC. And so all of us have these like different amazing creative insights that we pretty much added to each other. And we have mostly just been working on healing and becoming healthy within ourselves so that we could be as healthy when we go out and give back to our community, because it's very important for your personal health to be in check before you try to give to someone else. So personally, I have for a long time limited my visibility while I was dealing with my trauma, as it's Black trauma, it's femme trauma, and all of these traumas that I have been working on that made me to only be able to show myself to a small amount of people. So even right now, it gives me a lot of anxiety to even be present and to show myself on any social media or any recordings. I have a lot of knowledge that I've been collecting from life experience. I consider myself a genius, but I'm all in my head. So I have been just collecting and looking at things from a different perspective, and collecting on all spirituality. I think it's very important to know what your spirituality is, and then to be able to know, just have the knowledge on other spiritualities, because you got to know how to respect those spiritualities while still holding on to your own. So I'm an avid believer in my spirituality, but a believer that all spiritualities exist, and being open about being able to give a home to whatever spirituality people decide that's for them, and to be able to give a safe space for that. So with Gvrlblvnts, we started it after, for a while, we were already putting herbs together and stuff like that to try to deal with historical trauma during our new moons, because we have new moon rituals that we would do monthly. And we started putting our new moon solution together and, you know, cleansing ourselves and really working on our trauma and all of that. And all of us smoked weed. So we were always smoking weed. And eventually I was personally, like, I was smoking myself out of weed. I was smoking, but I wasn't getting high. I was still smoking them because I was used to it. And so I knew I was eventually going to stop smoking. So like with Gvrlblvnts, it kind of helped alleviate and pull away, excuse me, and pull away from my dependence on weed. Weed is not addictive, but the process is addictive. Like being around people that you smoked with and like not really wanting to challenge what y'all's relationship was without smoking, or you know, just like accepting that it's a part of your life that is starting to phase itself out, and being able to hold on to that, and holding on to that, because it's a dependence. It's not an addiction, it's a dependency. So for a while, you know, like I'd smoke like once a week or something, and then I'd be like, all right, I'm not smoking. Then I'll just smoke for like weeks just because it was there. Not really because I wanted to get high or anything like that, just because it was there. And I've been smoking since I was 17. So all of that, like, just, the same reasons I smoked later in my life was not the same reasons why I started smoking. When I started smoking, I didn't have any health opportunities within my community. So I would always, of course, like the rest of my family who I saw smoking or drinking, you know, I did those things. Later, I researched and well, it's not like I didn't know it, but I started paying attention a little more to the information that was being delivered to me about where smoking comes from. And as we know, it's an indigenous act of health. So I recognized that I was smoking to connect with an indigenous part of myself that if I had the proper upbringing within my culture, spirituality, that I would have known when to use smoking for myself, when it was beneficial and when it wasn't, when I needed it, and when to let it go very easily. So, but instead, since I've had my spirituality sold back to me, then I didn't recognize until later that I was using smoking, that something had colonized my smoking health, the reasons that I smoked. It was colonized. So I wasn't using it for like proper reasons or health reasons, and my body was telling me that I was too high above what smoking could give me at that moment. And I needed to stop because I was clogging up chakras in my throat, and I was overusing them. My brain was spinning fast, and I was speaking and not doing. And there was all of these things that was happening. So with Gvrlblvnts, like when we add into it health, it's something that we want you to smoke yourself out of. Like, it's not something that we're looking to be sustained in your life. It's something that we're looking as a supplement to help you get through the hard parts of health that we're bombarded with, which are the symptoms of historical trauma, which I will say what those symptoms are. With Gvrlblvnts, we want to target those as much as possible with the blends that we have. So we're very conscious by what we put in, what we're putting together, what information other people give us, the research. We try to pay attention to that so that we can be able to make sure that we know what it is that we are trying to do with this particular blend, and what we hope to give to our community, so we don't do what white colonizers did to our community and give us something that they didn't know what was going to happen with it, or that they didn't go back and revisit for themselves. We want to make sure that we're as knowledgeable as possible, and open to learning more, and always being people of knowledge, to continue to get to know what our health, and to help build health within our community. So the symptoms of historical trauma that we try to target are depression, anxiety, isolation, loss of sleep, anger, discomfort around white people, shame, fear and distrust, loss of concentration, substance abuse, violence, and suicide. And while obviously we're not going to be able to target all of those, As BIPOC, we are just bombarded with all of those. So we try to figure out how to alleviate with, how to alleviate with one thing, and then how to give other parts of ourselves to alleviate others, other parts of our health, our personal health, to give out to our community, because health is wealth. And so if we are able to be healthy ourselves and give our health out, then that helps our community do the same, and it continues to, do the snowball effect, and each person is giving back to another person and are being mindful and be able to recognize, capacity, accountability, things like that, that helps strengthen a community where we can trust and rely on each other to not be like those who oppressed us. With these symptoms of historical trauma, these are things that white colonizers, that they had. This is the disease that they had, that they gave to indigenous folks. So like when they came into the Native American community, they added these symptoms, this disease to their community. What's really great about their community is that they, the Native American people, were able to hold on to their culture long enough to be able to decipher the difference between the traumas that were given to them and the traumas that would have been coming from their own community before all of the oppressive factors that were placed on them. I actually got these symptoms, this list of symptoms. I got it from when I went to a NAIA conference, where a spiritual activist named Sweetwater was speaking on historical trauma, and it really changed my life. And this happened a few years back, probably like 2017 or 2016 or something like that. It really changed my life because as a Black person, I don't think about anxiety and depression, or I didn't. And I didn't think of it as like, hey, this is something that is overwhelming and is taxing our community. So it was very good to see that from an indigenous person's perspective, that this was something that was influencing our culture in a way. So I started thinking and planning from that point to challenge all of these things within myself, so that I can be able to recognize because I experienced a lot of trauma, and I needed a way to tone it all down to where it was understandable, where I wasn't dealing with all of them at once, where I could deal with one of them and be like, okay, I'm depressed right now, but I'm not just depressed and anxious and isolating myself and losing sleep and being afraid and being shameful, all those things at once. I was being like, okay, I have anxiety, and I have anxiety because of this, and helping my mindfulness, the mindfulness of my health and the wealth of my health, because at that time when you're going through all of these symptoms, you feel a lack of health, not a wealth of health. So it's very hard to be able to recognize what it is that you're dealing with when you're feeling lack, but abundantly lack, like it's an abundance of lack instead of abundance of wealth. And I have went through a lot and experienced a lot due to trauma, and my perspective on things is a little bit different. So the way I look at it is how we have to challenge it, is we have to challenge it from our perspective. But we have to find out what's our perspective and what's a white perspective. So with Gvrlblvnts, You know, that's why we are free on donation, pay what you can, for the BIPOC community, because we already pay so much for health and we don't make that much, or we don't make that much when it comes to this system, which is important. When we think about leaders, and the leaders right now who are they're fumbling around and trying to make us believe and be a part of what it is that they're trying to sell to us. But like I said, I got discomfort around white people, and that's all up there. That's all who up there talking. They all talking about trying to put a veil over our eyes and say, hey, you know, I can handle this, when everything they've done is showing, their actions showing they can't handle it. So I want to make sure that I have my health in hand and know where my resources are locally, so I know what to do when someone is who's considered as a leader is leading you into a hole. These historical traumas is something that white people haven't challenged within themselves, and they want, and you have to challenge all of these things before you can go and be a leader. You have to be able to recognize when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, so you know how you react to things, why you react to things, why you do the things that you do. These are all super important. We are trauma based. Every action we make is through fear and trauma, because that is what we know. As an American culture, we know abuse, we know deception, we know all of these things, and very little do we know self-love, and do we know clarity? Do we know honesty? A lot of times we are purchasing the lesser evil, and that's what they're telling us, but we're still purchasing evil. We're purchasing their evil. Their system is falling right now, and they want us to reinvest back into their system, wait on them to give us money and resources so that we can go and depend on them again, for them to keep their system going that is failing. And they know if we get that mindset, if we get the mindset that, hey, y'all shit failing right now, it's over. You know, those stocks can stay down. Those stocks meant nothing to me, period. Nothing. It meant everything to y'all. Y'all pinched y'all's pennies. I just saw a video today about a woman who went to the Dollar Tree, bought out all the dollar stuff. Tissue, napkins, paper towels. She bought them all. She had boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff that she didn't need. She riding up in her Ford truck, and then got 2 cars out there for herself. She got her man in her truck, and she got a SUV packing that up too. And they got them boxes on there, and she was white, and she was not thinking about no people of color. The people who was the senator of the representatives, the senators, or whatever they were, who ended up getting money from the stocks when they sold their stocks, because they got information in January about people about to be dealing with this virus. They got their money. They was already sitting pretty, but they got money. They went in and took their money out because they got information first. And every time they get information first, they don't think about you as a person of color or as a poor person. Because it's not even just a person of color, of course. It's poor people. It's just a lot of times poor white people still are going to invest back in a community that has disenfranchised them. Who's constantly taking food out their mouth, and then they blame people that look like us because that's what they were taught to do. They haven't dealt with their trauma, and then they want to push that trauma on other people. They want to push it on us and make us feel lack. And then when we get our resources out, say you become a musician or you become a activist that's out there talking about stuff, all these things, they want to get in on that. That's when they trying to invest in you, because they going to try to put your investment back into their system. This is with This is why with Gvrlblvnts, we're trying to work out of that. We're not trying to keep something that is not needed anymore if it's not needed. In our community, what we need is to build culture. We need to build what resources we have access to, instead of looking for resources that we could have access to in the future. As we see with their abundance of money, and people who, like us, who still got to go to work and still got to go in and be at risk of even getting it, then you can't go get a test. And if you get a test, you still got to pay for getting sick if you do got it. All of these things are the outside things that we have to think about and consider, and we can't even get to the trauma part of it. That's what it's like when we're trying to deal in our community. And that's why we work really hard to make sure whatever we can give is free, is on donation, is whatever you can give. It's like, hey, support us, we support you. That's all we can give. Like, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I've always been wealthy. I've always been wealthy in knowledge. I've been wealthy in skills and creativity. Like, I never stayed down long. And people who, in BIPOC people, they don't stay down long. A lot of times they stay down, they get down and then get back up, and we're resilient. So these traumas, is having to deal with these traumas and still coming out on top. Like, that's why, not on top of anybody else, just on top of ourselves. We come back out on top of ourselves after dealing with so much. And then you'll hear somebody, like, if you're still in school or something, like, wow, I can't believe you dealt with that. And you're like, that's day one. I didn't even tell you about 7 and 8. You know, like, we're dealing with a lot in our community. And right now, you know, a lot of people are panicking, and a lot of people are looking for resources, and they don't know what's going to happen with their housing, with their lights, you know, like, all of these things that the system has made us depend on, that it can take away once it fails. All these things is what's giving us anxiety in this time. I've personally been looking at it as this is a time of rest. It's a time of rest to see what falls, look at it all fall, and then see what stays and what rises up out of the rubble. We've been through a lot to where we have seen stuff fall. We've seen it. Even in this life, we constantly see it crumble and be recreated, crumble and be recreated. And the American system has been crumbling. Western civilization, as it was, it's been meant to crumble. All systems are meant to stop. All systems are meant to stop. You always have to have a fallout plan in a system. Now, if you have people who are in leadership who had the fallout plan to save themselves, the system's fallout plan is to save the one, not the many. And we got to recognize that within our system. They're going to keep lying, saying stay together, be united, as they go and take us off a cliff. I won't allow it. I won't allow them to tell me I'm not abundant, that I don't have enough, that I can't give stuff out for free, that I can't just nickel and dime my way to the top. I can't just go and say I'm going to allow them to tell me that I have lack when I know I have wealth. I'm blessed with the wealth of love from people who have supported me up to this point. I'm abundant in wealth of being alive when I could have been dead. I'm abundant in being mindful and being accountable for myself, to know myself better than anyone else. I'm abundant in these ways, to know that once they turn off these lights in here, I got candles. Once my candles go out, I got outside and I know how to breathe my air. I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I'm not going to be able to find the next resource. They are depending on money. I don't depend on money. I depend on my knowledge on how to prosper and how to strive. I have been taught through generations and generations of slaves who were constantly surviving to survive. My flaw is that I am always in survival mode when I need to learn how to appreciate the time that I'm in and not be in survival mode and be grateful for the wealth that I do have. But I know how to survive. I don't invest back into this system. I invest into my community, my immediate community. I invest in the BIPOC community, in the LGBTQI, QAI community, and I invest into those who invest in me. This is all I ever want to do. If Gvrlblvnts is gone, then I want to make sure that whatever I do next is going to be given back to my community, because that's the only resource I have. All I have is my community, and that's all Gvrlblvnts has. All we have is our community and our knowledge. We're blunt about what it is we trying to do. We not trying to hide nothing. We are transparent. Any question you ask, we give you the answer to. This is something that we are adding to our community to help build the community, to build our culture, so that when this system falls, we already have one that's created for ourselves. We're not waiting on anybody else. We will keep on delivering. We will always have enough, because we'll always know ourselves enough to know what we need and how to get that thing we need. And we don't have to deceive people to get to that point. All we need to do is know us.